Hello, and welcome to another episode of Snail Mail with Smokey. I hope you're having a fantastic day wherever you're at. I am super excited about today's episode because it is no ordinary episode of Snail Mail with Smokey. This, in fact, is another episode of Stamp versus Stamp. That's right. Rob, aka That Dead Guy, and I have teamed up once again to bring you this collaborative video. So here's what's going to happen. I have released a video. At the same time, Rob has released a video. So please, when you're done watching this video, go check out That Dead Guy and watch his video. And if you've already watched his video and now you're tuning into mine, then you know what's going on. And I'm so glad that you're here watching this video. So here's what Rob and I have decided to do. We have each tasked the other one with finding 5 stamps that to us represent 5 different topics. We didn't give each other any rules. We didn't give each other any prompts. We simply recorded our questions and sent them to each other. And then Rob and I both went to work finding stamps to answer the other one's inquiry. So what you're going to see now is you're going to see Rob, and he's going to ask me the first question. And then I'm going to respond to it, and then you'll see him ask me another question and a response, another question and a response. So you don't have to watch both videos to figure out what's going on. Each video stands on its own, but as a pair of videos, they complete the experience. I had such a wonderful time, not only coming up with the questions for Rob, but also doing the research to find the answers to the ones that he asked me. And you know, this is a personal thing. Everyone's choices are going to be different, but I'm really excited about how it turned out, and I hope you will enjoy it. So enough from me. Let's see what Rob's first question is.
All right, Smokey, the first topic for you to find a stamp that relates to this is friendship.
All right. Friendship. I looked through all of my albums, and in the end, this is the stamp I chose to represent friendship. This is Scott number 1752. It was issued by New Zealand on December 4th, 2001. It is part of the first series of stamps featuring the Lord of the Rings. As you probably already know, New Zealand is where they filmed all the movies for the Lord of the Rings franchise. This stamp features the characters of Frodo Baggins and Samwise Gamgee. The Lord of the Rings was written by J.R.R. Tolkien. It is one of my favorite series of books, as well as one of my favorite series of movies. In fact, both the Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit series, love both of them. So why did I pick this stamp to represent friendship to me? Well, if you've read The Lord of the Rings or you've watched the movies, then no doubt you know the kind of relationship that Frodo and Sam have. The relationship between these two characters, in many regards, is at the core of the tale of The Lord of the Rings. Growing up, I was a loner a lot. I did not have very many friends. And so movies and books were my way of escape. They were my way to live vicariously through other characters. When I think of the word friend, or I think of friendship, I think of someone that I could call at 2 o'clock in the morning and they would be there. I think of someone that if I'm moving halfway across the country, they're there. If I've suffered a great loss or a great need, they're there. If I'm celebrating, and if I'm having a party, if something remarkable has happened in my life, they're the person standing right next to me. And I believe that's true in this stamp and in the relationship of Frodo Baggins and Samwise Gamgee. Look, their relationship, they're not always cordial. Sometimes they have to tell each other hard truths. But that's what true friendship is. And in the end, they are closer than brothers, and they have a bond that cannot be broken. And so that's why I've chosen this particular stamp to represent friendship. And I hope you like it as much as I do.
Some stamps might be harder than others to find, but I know you're going to do it. So my topic number 2, because we're both parents, is on parenthood.
All right, parenthood. Yes, it's true. We are both fathers. I am blessed to be the father of two wonderful young ladies who are both grown, married now, living in their own houses. They have their own careers. So when I first heard Rob's topic of parenthood, I immediately went to my daughters. But then I pondered on it a while, and I began to think, and I took a completely different turn. And so this is the stamp that I chose that represents parenthood to me. This is Scott number 2301. It was issued by the United States on June 13th, 1987. It is part of a much larger set of stamps, and I'll show you that right now. This particular stamp measures 25 by 40 millimeters. It has a perforation of 11 and a face value of 22 cents. This stamp features the Northern Bobwhite quail. Now, you're probably asking, what the heck does a Northern Bobwhite quail have to do with parenthood? If you're me, the answer is everything. This stamp reminds me of my dad. My dad raised bobwhite quail, and more specifically, these Northern bobwhite quail that are featured on this stamp. Some of my earliest memories of my dad revolve around these quail. And most of his life, or at least the life that I knew growing up, he had these quail. The reason I've chosen this stamp is because early on, like many young children and teenagers do, I did not have a great relationship with my dad. And there's lots of reasons for that. But it just wasn't the best relationship that I could have had. It wasn't until I became an adult that my dad and I really developed a really tight, close relationship. And he became one of my best friends. And I don't know, I think a lot of young people do this, but I remember growing up and saying, man, when I get older, when I have a wife, when I have children, when I have a family of my own, I'm going to do things completely different, and I'm going to be nothing like my dad. Now that I'm older, now that my children are grown, one of the greatest compliments that anyone could give me is to say, you're just like your dad. My dad was a great man. My dad was a man who had lots of wisdom. He wasn't a loud-spoken man. He didn't talk a lot. All of those characteristics I get from my mom. But when my dad did speak, he had such wisdom. And there have been many times in my life when I first got married, when I had things in my marriage, things with my children, when I had decisions to make about my career, I would go to my dad. And my dad would always give me really great advice. My dad he would always say, I'm not going to tell you what to do, but I'm going to give you some things to think about. And so I tried really hard to emulate that. And so this stamp represents my dad. And I am the man I am today, largely in part because he was the man he was. And my dad has been gone for 14 years now, and I miss him every day. And this stamp in my collection is a great reminder of him. So that's why I chose it.
My third topic for you: what brings you joy?
What brings me joy? That's a great question, Rob. There were a couple different avenues that I could go with on this question. My wife, my daughters, they bring me immense joy. When it comes to just pure childlike joy, any long-necked animal, if I see a giraffe, I see a llama, instant joy. But I went in a different direction, and so ultimately I chose this stamp here. Now let me give you a little background. In the 1830s, the postal rates in Great Britain were very high, and the charges were complex and hard to understand. Usually the recipient of the letter or package would pay for postage upon its delivery, and the charge was determined by weight and also by the distance that the letter or package had to travel. So in an attempt to make things easier for the post office as well as the public, Sir Rowland Hill proposed using an adhesive stamp that would indicate that the postage had already been prepaid. Now, he put forward this idea in 1837, but it wasn't until 3 years later, in 1840, that the penny black was first issued. It was issued on May 1st, 1840, but wasn't valid for postal use until May 6th, 1840, 5 days later. We all know this stamp. This is Scott #1. It features a portrait of Queen Victoria. The penny black was the world's first postage stamp, and it has an image of Queen Victoria on it, which interestingly enough was based on a sketch of her at the age of 15. However, that same image remained on stamps for the entirety of Queen Victoria's reign, which lasted almost 64 years. So why did I pick this stamp to represent joy? Well, look, this is a stamp channel. This is a philately channel, and I've been collecting, I guess, around 8 years now. And philately, stamp collecting, post crossing, they bring me immense joy. Whether it's filming these videos, doing the research for these videos, corresponding with you, whether you send me a message on the video or on Instagram or through postcards. It's great fun. Just going through my stamp albums, organizing them, keeping track of all my stamps, doing the catalog process that I do. I can spend hours doing it. And sometimes I do. I don't always have that kind of time. But there are days where I have an hour or two and I'll just indulge into my stamp collection, into the hobby of philately. And so it brings me really great joy. I chose this particular stamp because this is what started it all. I bought this penny black a couple of years ago now. It was a stamp that I really wanted in my collection, and I was able to find one and to purchase it. It's one of my favorite stamps in my collection because of this very reason, because it represents the beginning of the philatelic hobby, and that's something that brings me really great joy.
Smokey, the fourth topic: in a world that is in turmoil, it has been since the dawn of time, and we're looking for peace. What stamp represents peace for you at this moment?
All right, Rob. Really, really great question. You're correct. Our world is in a sort of a constant state of chaos. There seems to be something going on at all times. So what brings me peace? There was no doubt what my answer to this question was going to be. The only hard thing for me was to pick the right postage stamp to convey the message that I want to convey about what brings me peace. And so in the end, I chose this stamp. This is a Canadian stamp. It was issued on December 4th, 1930. This stamp measures 39 by 28 millimeters. It has a face value of 50 Canadian cents. And this stamp features the Acadian Memorial Church located in Grand Prix, Nova Scotia. Now, this memorial church is one of the main sites relating to the history of Canada. I'm sure Rob is familiar with this site and this church and could probably do a better job of giving the history. It was created in 1922 through funding that the Acadian communities in North America raised, and it is a symbol of the spirit of the Acadia belief and nationalism. In 1922, Memorial Church was deemed a federal heritage building. So I encourage you to research this historic church to discover the heritage and the importance behind it for yourself. It really has an incredible story to tell. But let me tell you why I chose this stamp. It wasn't just for the story that the church has to tell. I chose this stamp firstly because of its beauty. This stamp is a remarkable stamp, in my opinion. It is a beautiful stamp. I love the colors. I love the subject matter. The second reason I chose this stamp is because of the church in the middle of the stamp. It reminds me of the country churches that I grew up in. So the reason I chose this stamp to answer the question, what brings me peace, is because my peace comes from my faith in the Lord. I am a Christian. I'm also a pastor. And it is my faith in the Lord that brings me peace. My peace doesn't come from my bank account. My peace doesn't come from my job. My peace doesn't come from my belongings. My peace doesn't come from my government or the leaders of my state or country. But my key peace comes from the Lord. It is something that I draw upon daily. It is something that I am constantly reminded of, and it is something that sustains me in all areas of my life. And so when you ask me what represents peace, it's my relationship with the Lord, it's my trust in Him, and my faith in Him, and that will never change.
And the fifth and final topic, it wouldn't be this with the two of us unless we had something a little bit unusual. That's what I want to add into the last stamp. I want something with the topic, the fifth topic of quirky. What is a quirky stamp for you? And I'm going to let you decide what that means, whether it's the image that's quirky, whether it's the shape that's quirky, whether that's the country that issued it was quirky. I don't know. What's quirky to you?
All right, quirky. Well, the last couple of topics have been rather emotional for me, and that's okay. I believe that's one reason why Rob and I are collaborating on this project, and that is to show just how much of an impact the humble postage stamp can have on our lives. It's kind of like when you walk into a restaurant and the smell of the food just hits you in the face, and that immediately takes you back to another time and another place. That's how postage stamps are. When we get beyond the surface level of what they are, which is a way to pay for a service, and we really delve into the artwork and the beauty and the story they have to tell, they can really evoke a lot of emotions. And I'm okay with that. I'm okay sharing my thoughts. I'm okay sharing my memories that these stamps bring to my mind when I really stop and study them. But it is always nice to end with a bit of levity. And so I'm so happy that for his last inquiry, Rob chose quirky. Look, immediately when I heard it, one stamp came to mind in my collection, and that's this stamp right here. This stamp was released by Tonga. It is Scott number 248. This stamp was issued on June 9th, 1970. And so while most traditional postage stamps, as you know, are either square or rectangle, Tonga has chosen a non-traditional route for their postage stamps. Beginning in 1969, Tonga began issuing banana-shaped stamps. Now, the banana is a staple food for the Tonganese people, and so they incorporated that into their postage stamps. Now, something that's interesting to note about Tonga and their postage stamps is that Tonga was the first country in the world to issue a self-adhesive postage stamp. So for those of you who wonder how we got self-adhesive postage stamps, this is how we got them. And by introducing self-adhesive postage stamps, Tonga was then able to branch out, to go beyond the normal square or rectangle of the stamp, and to do interesting designs. And so subsequently, Tonga has issued many creative designs of postage stamps. They have stamps in the shape of hearts or birds or fruit. There's more banana sets. There's a set of coconut stamps. And so they've become really popular with philatelists and collectors around the world. And the great thing is, most of the stamps aren't that expensive. They're readily available. You can find them on internet stamp dealers for a pretty good price. So when I think of Quirky, I think of a lot of things, but I love this banana stamp. I just think it's different, and I like that in stamps. So for Quirky, this is the stamp. So look, I have had a tremendous amount of fun doing this. Thank you, Rob. Thank you for really taking a lot of thought into the areas that you asked me to find a stamp about. Thank you for collaborating on this video. It is always a great time to collaborate with you. I look forward to many more stamp versus stamp episodes. And I've just had so much fun doing the research. It's allowed me to go back into my stamp collection, to look through my albums. That's the stamps that I haven't seen in a while. So it was really nice to revisit those. Thank each one of you for watching this. Don't forget, if you haven't, go check out That Dad Guy. Not only this video, but the rest of his videos. He puts out some really great content. If you haven't done so yet, I ask that you please consider subscribing to this channel. We're inching closer to 500 subscribers. That's a huge milestone for me. So when we reach that, we'll do some way of celebrating that together. Also, if you like this video, hit the thumbs up, leave me a positive comment, tell me what you thought about the video, and I always read all the comments. I always respond to each of them, and it's really one of the things I like about the channel, is getting to interact with you, the viewer. So once again, thank you so much for watching. Until I see you next time, have a great day. Bye-bye.